What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Celtics Daily Vacation edition. Excuse me, as we continue to be on the road. We came to you live from Paris last time. Now we are out in Amsterdam and about to make some more moves here. But before we talk about the Celtics, just do me a favor. We're closing in on 2,000 subs, soared past 1,900. Just hit the subscribe if it's your first time here. You know who's no longer going to be here? Our guy, Wyc Grousbeck. He got Mark Cuban yesterday, a full announcement, which honestly, if anybody was paying attention from the beginning, I thought it was pretty nuts that they thought Wyc Grousbeck was going to stay there. So the initial deal, right? Bill Chisholm buys the Celtics for almost $7 billion when all was said and done. And then the announcement was, hey, Wyc Grousbeck, we appreciate you, man. We're all about the transition of power. He's going to stay on for 3 years. He's going to, still run operations here, kind of help Bill Chisholm, show him the ropes, and then secede power, if you will, give it to Bill Chisholm. Bill Chisholm said, hey, I spent $7 billion. I don't know. Maybe I want to make the decisions. And no kidding, the same exact thing happened with the Dallas Mavericks when Mark Cuban sold his shares, which seemed to surprise the heck out of everyone. Mark Cuban was still supposed to be, I believe his title was like president of basketball operations, something. No, it wasn't that title, but it was something like that, right? Where he was going to stay in the Wyc Grousbeck role. He was going to be in charge of everything. And then immediately, almost right away, Mark Cuban was exiled, annexed, sent off into Never Land, even though he continues to tweet like he's in charge. Clearly, he was somebody who was blindsided by the Luka Doncic trade, and that kind of changed everything. So I don't know. I think a lot of people were stunned by this. I've been saying for a couple of months now that there was no way that Wyc Grousbeck was going to stay on for 3 years. I mean, like, dude, listen, you're going to buy a basketball team. You're going to spend all that money, all that capital to take over one of the most storied franchises in the history of sports. And then you're going to be like, you know what? Somebody else can be in charge. There's no way. Like, no one's going to do that. And I think it's been clear with some of the moves that the Celtics have been making already, right? Just shedding salary, going from a $500+ million team between salary and tax. Now cut that over in half, right? They're almost under the first apron. They're almost out of the luxury tax. It was just so clear that like Wyc Grousbeck wasn't going to be a part of this. And so I don't know. This is like the dawn of a new era now. Now we get to see what like new ownership's going to look like. How are they going to attack roster construction? And I think they were given a gift here with the Jason Tatum injury. I know it seems weird to call an Achilles tear to an MVP caliber player as a gift, but if you knew you were going to take over this team and you weren't going to spend that crazy money, right, having the Tatum injury, it's like, hey, man, listen, we can spend that money. We can't right now because we're not going to be that good. So why spend all of this money just to lose games? And then when Tatum does come back and he is healthy, we won't have the flexibility to do it, right? And so the Tatum injury kind of gave them the green light to just go ahead, cut salary and be like, oh yeah, listen, we'll be ready to go in 26, 27. But that so they get like 1 year grace period, 1 year where you can be like, hey, we're tanking now. This is a gap year. But then the real test will be in the 26, 27 free agency offseason. Like, what kind of moves are they going to make? Are they going to be as aggressive as the Grousbeck group? Now, the Grousbeck group did not really have to deal with the second apron. They signed all of these contracts almost knowing in the back of their head, we're not going to have to pay these guys because we're going to be selling the team, right? So I don't know, maybe keep that in mind, but I'll be curious to see how both like the actions that they take, but the words that they use to explain some of these actions. Like, are they going to be trying to like doing some straight up PR, massaging the dialogue a little bit to be like, oh, listen, baby, we'll be ready to go when Tatum comes back. I don't really know. I don't know how they're going to take it, but we are like officially in this new era of the Boston Celtics. And I don't want to call it the rebuild, but I do think there will be some serious questions to answer this time next season. Again, I think they're kind of given a pass for a year. I don't know how you feel about it in the chat. Like, please let me know. Were you surprised by this? Did this make sense to you? But I'll be curious. Like, again, year of like a what's a transition phase, like, oh, let's see what we got. Let's see what we got with our young guys. What are our needs when Tatum comes back? But then this time next season, if they are not being serious about going for the next banner, as Peyton Pritchard said, if they're not serious about it, then I think, we're in a new era. And I don't want it to go the way of the Dallas Mavericks, where all of a sudden, no matter how you feel, that was still an insane trade where they trade Luka Doncic. Like, you don't want to be in that scenario. But I do think we have to be on watch now because that is the direction we're heading right now. let's move on to the second topic. Again, this one's going to be a relatively quick episode as we're still on vacation, but wanted to make sure we came to you with the Wyc stuff. So we talked about Tatum in the last video. And boy, oh boy, do people seem to be out on Jason Tatum as like a clutch player. I think it had a little to do with the Joe Mazzulla conversation, but I do think Tatum gets a little bit of a bad rap, and I think that might have to do with the fact that he takes a lot of sidestep threes, right? I think he gets handed some grenades sometimes for the Celtics offense for whatever reason. It seems like they got over that hump, right? We saw it in 2022 when they lost to the Golden State Warriors, where we got to crunch time, and it seemed like all the bums got tight for the Boston Celtics. They dribble out the clock, and then someone would take a Hail Mary three-pointer, and you'd hope it would go in. We did not really see that in the Kristaps Porzingis Drew Holiday Celtics in 2024 when they won the title, right? It seemed like they had gotten over that hump. Now, part of that was the Eastern Conference kind of wilted once we got to the playoffs. They didn't have to deal with any of the bigs. When they got to the Western Conference, it was Luka Magic and Kyrie Irving, and that's about it. But it seemed like they had gotten over that hump. They were playing a little bit faster. They were still shooting the blood out of the three ball like they were chucking it. But it seemed like they had gotten over those hiccups, right? And then last year, specifically in the Knicks series, that's where we saw it, right? I think they took care of business in the first round against the Orlando Magic. But to have 2 20-plus point leads in games 1, games 2, at home against the New York Knicks, and then to kind of revert back to what we saw, I think that kind of scared people a little bit into the Tatum conversation. But I just want to remind people, like Jason Tatum, after the Celtics were down, was it 3-1 against the Sixers or 3-2? Maybe it was just 3-2. They win game 6 on the road with like a pretty fiery comeback. And now the 76ers blew this one, but a comeback. Then game 7 at home, he drops 50 points in a game 7. So, like, yeah, I'm sure you're a little like, well, check the clutch stats. He scored 50 points in a game 7. And then if you like fast forward, I think this was the same playoff series, the next series, Eastern Conference Finals, the Milwaukee Bucks, right? Or was it the Bucks? Was that the Eastern Conference Finals of the second round? I can't remember how it matched up. But you remember that game 6 where he goes toe-to-toe with the league MVP and Giannis Antetokounmpo? And I think he dropped like 44 in that game. So I think we have a little bit of selective memory. And if you want to go to clutch stats, sure. And I know Jalen Brunson was Mr. Clutch this past season. He like won that award, I believe. But like the guys who won it prior to that are De'Aaron Fox and DeMar DeRozan. And I'm not saying those guys are bad basketball players, but like sometimes if we're just looking at the numbers without the nuance to it, we're just like, well, if you look at it, like, well, congrats. Do you want De'Aaron Fox instead of Jason Tatum? Do you want DeMar DeRozan instead of Jason Tatum? I don't think so. I don't think that's where you're landing on those things. So I just think maybe we take a step back a little bit. And yes, is it frustrating as hell sometimes when they're just firing 3-point shots, especially the sidestep threes? Those just look disgusting. They don't seem to go down. And they're tough shots. You want to see the Celtics get into the offense a little bit sooner instead of dribbling it out and taking that shot. And I think that is, indicative of, like, I think that has a little to do with the coaching. I think that has a little to do with Tatum as well, but also the rest of the Celtics. Like, that doesn't just fall on him. That seems to be the pattern of the team. You can say attitude reflects leadership. Sure, if you want to quote, remember the Titans, you could do that. But I think to just say he's not clutch is just poor. I don't think that. I think he deserves a little bit more credit than that, but yet we can still be frustrated at some of the shot selection. Let's get into. Well, I saw a little trade floating around because the Celtics are clearly going to make one more move to get out of the tax, out of the first apron, and I saw somebody floating around. Gabe Vincent for Sam Hauser. Kill me now. I don't. Why? Why is that happening? Now, that's a great deal for the Lakers. And I know some of you are a little out on Sammy Hauser. He's shooting 40, is a career 40+% 3-point shooter. I would say an average defender, not a sieve on defense. I think everybody, shiv. What's the right word I was looking for? I don't know. Who cares? He's not that terrible at defense, even though they look at him and they're like, look at this lanky white guy. I bet we could cook him. He holds his own. Gabe Vincent is somebody that he was almost like the Avery Bradley of the Miami Heat. And what I mean by that is Avery Bradley played for the Boston Celtics, obviously, was like one of the best two-way guards or one of the best on-ball defending guards for a while, seemed to hit the three-point shot, was like an okay offensive player. Then Avery Bradley goes to other teams. I know he spent some time with the Lakers. Was it the Mavericks too? I know he went to the Lakers. And then was just kind of terrible, right? And then we started this whole dialogue about how don't sign a guy after he plays for Brad Stevens because he was like coached up so well that it's going to be a downgrade. Gabe Vincent is the same thing for the Lakers, except he played for the Miami Heat, right? Eric Spoelstra turns this guy into not a superstar, but he was an elite role player in his time with the Miami Heat. You remember when he was in those like finals run, whatever, for the Miami Heat, he was like one of their key cogs. And then I think they assumed he was going to do that for the Lakers as well. And then his stint with the Lakers has been bad. I'm going to pull up some of his numbers here. We'll look at his career and his Lakers stint. So last season he played 72 games, which you might be thinking like, oh, he was hurt, he missed some time. No, played 72 games. He did shoot 40% from the field, 35% from three. He averaged 6 points, 1 board, and 1 dime. No, thank you. I feel like he was just not an impact player. And when you're talking about the Lakers, man, they needed so much help from the bench. They weren't getting really anything. And so if you're like, just no thanks. Now, again, the contract stuff makes a little bit more sense because I believe Gabe Vincent is on an expiring deal. So he most likely would get traded. It would help us financially. If you're going to move off Sam Hauser, I guess you could do that. I would much rather be into if the Celtics plan is to trade Sam Hauser, I'd be much more into sitting back, waiting until we get closer to the trade deadline. When some team who was like a 3 seed in their conference and is desperate, they feel like they're just one shooter away from getting over the hump. And then like get like the playoff tax in there, So I hope that's not what they do. That seemed, I'm sure like Rob Pelinka probably leaked that deal. That seems like a really good deal for the Lakers and a real big bullshit deal for the Celtics. But I don't know. Maybe you guys are Gabe Vincent believers because you have PTSD from those Miami Heat Boston Celtics series, but not me. It's more scared of Caleb Martin than I am Gabe Vincent. Let's get to your comments here and then we will wrap up. But before we do that, let's remind you what. Listen, we're dropping videos while we're on vacation. The least you could do is hit the subscribe button while the sun comes in on my face right here. Okay. Let's wrap up with some of your comments. I don't have the individual one pulled up, but I grabbed the vibe from yesterday's video. Everybody seems pretty out on Joe Mazzulla. I was very surprised to see how out everybody was with the extension. And let me ask you this. Who are the coaches out there right now that don't have a job that you would rather have as the Celtics coach? Because that's like, Rick Carlisle, sure. Rick Carlisle, incredible coach. He's got a job with the Indiana Pacers. He's not trying to move, even though former Celtic. Eric Spoelstra, you put him on the list. I don't want Tom Thibodeau over Joe Mazzulla. I don't want Mike Malone over Joe Mazzulla. Like, I get the real frustrations that we kind of covered, right? That offense gets real predictable, real stagnant at times where it's just like dribble, shoot the three. But I think in the early parts of the season, early parts of the game specifically, when that ball's zipping around, and yes, it's a lot of threes, but they're wide open shots because they're doing a good job attacking the rim and then kicking out. And I think that is the style of play that works best with the roster that's been constructed. But I do think at the end of this season, we will get a much better feel of like the ceiling of Joe Mazzulla as a coach, because he no longer is going to have 2 All-NBA guys in Tatum and Brown, the all defensive team in Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis shooting the three, rim running, the leadership, and big man stretch 5 play of Al Horford. All of that is gone. So now he's going to have to make chicken salad out of chicken, right? With guys like Baylor Shireman, with Hugo Gonzalez. Like, what are we going to get out of Jordan Walsh? Does Amari Williams and Max Sugar, who are the guys on the 2-way trade deals, and RJ Lewis, like, are those guys going to get opportunities from bouncing back and forth from Maine to Boston? Does Derek White find a new level? What does Anthony Simons get from you? Like, this is going to be a different type of coaching job where, like, the Celtics for the last 6 years have been predicted or projected to finish like the top 1 or 2 in the Eastern Conference, right? I don't remember the last time besides this past season when the Celtics wouldn't at least find themselves in the Eastern Conference Finals. And now they are projected to finish in the play-in game, right? What was it? 43, 42 win projection. They've got these are the teams they have in front of them. They've got the Knicks, the Cavs, the Magic, the Hawks. The Pistons are ahead of them. I believe the Bucks are ahead of them. I think they have the same win total. I think the Heat might be ahead of them. The same win total as like the 76ers, the Indiana Pacers. So they're going to finish somewhere between like 6 and 9. Nice, we think. But Yeah, I don't know. I think I understand some of the frustration with Missoula, but whenever you do this with coaches, my pushback is always like, well, who is the guy that comes in here? Who is the coach that you're like, oh, especially one that does not have a job right now that you're like, oh, if we only had Mike Malone. Like Mike Malone's a fine coach, but he's not going to develop young guys. That's the reason he's not coaching in Denver anymore. Is the front office gets so frustrated with both how he was handling the friction between him and the front office and how he just was not playing these young guys. And so this is what this season is playing young guys. Tom Thibodeau, no. I mean, you want to talk about somebody who hasn't made adjustments. They were praising him for making adjustments like 89 games into the season last year. Well, they almost like ran into the Pistons as a problem. So I don't know who the guy that's available that you're like, oh, bring him in. That fixes stuff. I still like we ranked this the other day. I'll take Carlisle in the East ahead of him, and I'll take Eric Spoelstra in the East ahead of him. That's it though. Give me Joe over Bickerstaff, over Atkinson, over who's Mosley over the Magic. Who else am I missing? I don't know. I've taken him over all of those guys. Nick Nurse, no thank you. The Western Conference, sure, you put Steve Kerr in that list. I'll listen to you. I think Ime Udoka, and maybe that's part of the frustration everyone's having. Is they're like, we could have still had Ime Udoka. Well, tell Ime Udoka to take care of his off the court stuff, and then you'd still be there, you know. But anyways, that's gonna do it there. Let me know. I don't know, just how you feeling about the Wyc Grousbeck situation. You can yell at me about Tatum not being clutch. I'm open to that. And then, of course, I do not want to hear from anyone who's a Celtics fan that says, give me Gabe Vincent. Not me. Not me. Not here. Not now. Thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe. We'll see you next time from another undisclosed location in Europe.